Don't say I don't do stuff for you. Pop that there. See you in a minute. Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. The Premier League season it's over. But there's an important phrase that I like to say sometimes, which is this. One must beware hubris. Yeah, don't get up on your high horse, Man City, because Arsenal are on like a Shetland horse and they could jump off that horse onto your horse and kick you off that horse and then run away with your horse, and then you're going to have to ride on the little horse, which will take longer. Okay? That's the important thing, really important thing to take from today's video. So, we are going to send every Premier League team packing with a lesson that they must learn from the final day. It was an epic final day. And of course, Everton survived. Congratulations to Everton fans. Leicester City and Leeds were relegated. Commiserations to the pair of you. And of course, Southampton as well. But there was chaos up and down the leagues. Lots of goals and lots of lessons to learn. So in this video, we are going to put forward a lesson for every single team. If you are new to the channel, we are less than 5,000 subscribers away from 250k. Push, push, push. Can you just move your finger, click the button? If you enjoy the content, why not do that? If not, don't. And of course, if you do enjoy the video, hit the like button by the end of it or at some point. Let's go. Arsenal, first of all, build the team around Saka. He is a yummy little footballer, isn't he? And I know you don't like me saying yummy, but some players just are. Okay? Arsenal displayed in their 5-0 win against Wolves. Couple of things. I think, first of all, you're kind of like, couldn't you have done that a couple of weeks ago? We could still be excited about the final day at the top of the table. But also, and that's something that needs to be unlocked. I think there needs to be a mental strength and a composure that needs to arrive next season. They've had 2 goes at it. They failed both times. That doesn't mean that they will do it again. I think they will have a lot more composure next year. But can they get themselves to that position? That's going to be interesting. But if they are to be back next season, and possibly even better, then Saka is a big, big reason for them doing so well this year. And he's the player that they need to focus on. Arsenal will no doubt have some big outgoings and even bigger incomings in the summer. Speaking of those outgoings and ingoings, if you want a video on the next 3 transfer windows, we've done it for Man United, Liverpool, we're going to be doing it for Newcastle, we've done it for Chelsea as well. If you want us to do it for Arsenal, let's have a like target, 2,500 likes, and we will do that for you. But in terms of outgoings and ingoings, the player that demonstrated how important he has been all season is that boy, Bukayo Saka. Saka had 3 shots in this game against Wolves and scored a goal as well. This season, he's finishing on 25 goal contributions, which is fantastic. The season before, he got 18. If Arsenal are to win the league next season, they have to make it about Saka because he is generally the answer. Moving on to Wolves, do your business early. I'm slightly worried about Wolves next season. You know, Wolves conceded 2.39 XG to Arsenal whilst only creating 0.47 of their own. We've spoken a lot about them needing a striker. I think they could well be losing Ruben Neves or some of their key players next year as well because of the reports that we've seen recently where they need to sell some assets. They might not even have Lopetegui, who's been so crucial since he's come in. So whatever needs to happen, whatever state of flux that they're in, figure it out, move quickly. They also didn't register a shot on target in the game as well. So they do need to really improve that attacking output. So what this all tells us in terms of that XG is that they need to back Lopetegui this window. Can they do it? I'm not sure. But the problem is that FFP restrictions may hold them back. So therefore, they need to be proactive, as I said, and try to sign players on free transfers, maybe get some clever loans in, and not get dragged into any bidding wars in late August. And as we have said numerous bloody times, get yourself a striker that scores goals. Please. Otherwise, Wolves could be going down next year. I could easily see that happening. They could be this year's Leicester. Crystal Palace, the big lesson for them, don't waste this chance. Roy Hodgson has got this Palace team into a great spot where they have rediscovered themselves and put themselves into a great spot for next season. That is, if they don't blow it and appoint a manager that disrupts it all. Palace need to take a breath before making any decisions to avoid flipping the club upside down. It's one of those where if it starts to go really wrong, then you will be where Palace were. But if you can get this team firing, and the recruitment has been good, and it is exciting, then this can be a team that can enjoy themselves, and the fans can enjoy themselves, and they can go and win a cup competition, and they can not be worried about relegation at any point. And I think that's it feels like the ceiling. They have to look at their enemies, Brighton, and look to do what they've done, and that comes with a very high-profile manager. The momentum bar against Forest shows how much quality there is in the side and how they're able to control matches now and create chances for themselves, so don't blow it. They drew, of course, 1-1 with Forest, and Forest need to keep playing to their strengths. And despite only achieving 34% possession and Palace having the majority of that momentum bar that we spoke about in this game, Forest still came away with a 1-1 draw and a point. And I think this shows Forest what their game plan needs to be. And at times, I felt like they've struggled for an identity this season. And that has been something that's been put forward to them, probably because of the churn of players. And with the form displayed at the end of the season and this direct way of playing, I think the final they showed that this can be a good method of winning points, even when not on top. And Awani has to be a big part of that for me. I think they need to keep him fit. If he can have a full season, I think you can be really excited about what you can achieve. Brennan Johnson, him, Morgan Gibbs-White, and then improve that midfield and defence, but improve that ability to hold on to the ball, which will come through time and chemistry. And I think you're moving forward, and you're going to be slightly less precarious than you were this season, and that's what Forest want. Awani has scored 6 goals in his last 4 games of the season and is flourishing in this direct style of play. So playing to his strengths will guarantee goals and perhaps lead to a good season next year. Everton, don't count those chickens. If you've got any chickens knocking about, don't count them, okay? Because staying up like that is always going to be a huge relief for Everton, and they can finish the season going, okay, we're fine now. And that's great. But what Everton can't forget is what led them to here in the first place, and that was demonstrative in the match itself. Despite having good spells of threat within the match itself, Everton only created a total of 1.0 XG, or 1 XG, 1 expected goals, what I'm trying to say, okay? In a game that they had to win. Now, I think Sean Dyche was spot on with what he had available to him. But what it also shows is that the attack lacks bite. Sean Dyche also spoke about, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's not been fit for most of the season, and we've been able to get points, so don't worry too much. Yes, but in a way that kind of works with percentages instead of controlling the game itself. Just because your name's Everton doesn't mean you have a divine right to be in the Premier League. It's nonsense. You are where you are, okay? So they need to address it the moment the window opens with smart strategy, clever recruitment, and an understanding that Sean Dyche will not be sacked in October, that he will get given the whole season and they will recruit accordingly. Because there are players out there that could be brought in that can be quite cheap but functional and allow this team to be smooth sailing in mid-table this year, because that is the aim. Nothing more than that for Everton, I don't think. That's why Sean Dyche is the manager. Bournemouth, they need to add squad depth and you'll be safe, I think, next year. I know there was nothing in this game for Bournemouth really apart from climbing 1 or 2 positions in mid-table. That's why they gave some chances to some of their fringe and squad rotation players. But what this showed me was that they do need to inject some quality to the bench. I think that's the next stage for them and to the squad as a whole. And whilst I think the starting 11 is solid for the Premier League, it does show that without Tavernier, they're just not the same side. As soon as I saw that they weren't that he wasn't even on the bench, I thought they're probably not going to win this game. And I think that's how Burnley fans feel as well. I also thought the lack of impact from the subs bench, it showed that they're probably championship level, those players, and that's the biggest lesson that they learned. Apart from that, it's been a fantastic season for Gary O'Neill and Bournemouth. I think one thing I would put to him as well is, can you win games of football in different ways? That will be the task that Bournemouth need to show next season, because I think there's been enough energy, desire, and all of those elements to get them over the line this year, but they have conceded a lot of goals this year, and next year you want a bit more control and a bit more variability, I think, as well. Aston Villa, Jacob Ramsey is the future of the club. There have been some excellent performances from some Villa players since Unai Emery took over, with the likes of Tyrone Mings, Douglas Luiz and Ollie Watkins all excelling. But what Jacob Ramsey showed against Brighton on the last day is that he can be the guy that elevates them to the next level, maybe carries them in Europe next season. I think it's actually going to be so great for his development to play in Europe and to play in the Conference League, because I think it will be probably a little bit too easy for him at times, but I think it's just perfect in terms of his long-term development. And he's he will be playing for England very, very soon, I think. I think he's actually a little bit unlucky not to be in the latest squad, but it's coming. And I think so for him next season, they need to really make sure that they look after him and allow him to thrive. I think his second assist for Watkins' goal displayed his composure, attacking awareness, and importantly, dynamism and a little bit of bravery in there as well as a midfielder. He's finished this season on 6 goals and 7 assists, which I think is fantastic considering he was never really a key man under Gerrard. Brighton, I think the future is bright. That was crap. But it's been a long season and I'm running out okay. Now, this will have been an odd match for Brighton fans because they've ended the season on an overall high by achieving Europa League. However, the final whistle also meant that McAllister and it looks like Moises Caicedo had played their last games. If you go from what De Zerbi was saying and mentioning that both players have probably played their last games for the club, I think that's quite a good sign. Yeah. But the future is bright, for Brighton. As you've got Julio Enciso with that banger the other day, and he's just clearly a quality player. Evan Ferguson is physically there, but he's so young. Facundo Buonanotte and Karu Matoma, who has lit up the league this year, in my opinion. He's just gliding away. He's like, what is he, like a swan and a deer sort of together, And that's just a sort of reminder of the quality that is still at the club despite those players leaving. And if you think of the players that left previously, they were able to replace them pretty quickly. So no matter who leaves Brighton, Brighton will be okay. And they got European football next season. Exciting. Basically, keep it up. Because from top to bottom, it's just a super smart club, it seems. Speaking of which, Brentford. No Tony, no problem. After that 1-0 win against Man City. And I think they are the only team to have played Man City more than once and not lost to them this year. Yes, there was a lot of changes, but it's a good stat and they deserve it, okay? Brentford became the only team to do the double on Man City this season as well, and they didn't even have Ivan Toney. I think that's something that they need to remember in the transfer window. I think this is the big lesson for them. And I think they will because they are smart and we've seen it already in terms of how quick they're able to change their style of play. They don't need to necessarily replace Toney. More so, they need to find someone who can lead the attack in a different way and then complement Toney when he comes back. I think, even in my videos where we've been sort of putting forward one striker, it was someone as sort of a backup for him. But I think with Sharda and maybe some new additions, I think we might be seeing the next sort of evolution of Brentford next season where they play a little bit more football and it's a little bit more fun. But I mean, God, it's been a fun season for Brentford. Massive jump up from 13th to 9th. They've been absolutely fantastic. Man City, I think the big lesson for them from that final day, don't let this loss affect the momentum. Pep rotated heavily for this one with the likes of Sergio Gomez, Rico Lewis, Calvin Phillips and Cole Palmer all starting. And the underlying stats showed that this was not a team operating at their maximum capacity. They had 17 shots, but only 3 on target. They also only created 0.64 XG, which is just not Man City. And the reality is that they probably wouldn't have scored even if they played up until midnight. And City need to remember now that their momentum doesn't have to stop after losing that one game, and they have to take that loss as an isolated incident to avoid it putting any kind of jeopardy on those treble ambitions. Chelsea, a couple of lessons. Probably, I think there's one just screaming at us. Poch, fix the attack. Look at the momentum bar from the game against Newcastle, and you can see that Chelsea actually played relatively well against Newcastle. Their XG was 2.21. And I think that obviously shows that they are creating to a point. But the problem for Chelsea here on the final day was the same problem as they've had all season. And that is that they are shockingly bad at scoring chances from open play. Despite having 22 shots in the match. I think one stat that speaks volumes about the Chelsea attack is that Kai Havertz didn't have a single shot in the 59 minutes that he played. This just shows the need for a striker and how Pochettino integrates whoever it may be into the squad is going to be vital next season. But if you could only have one signing, it's a quality striker. It has to be done. Don't need anyone else. You can probably make it work, but get a striker, a good one that doesn't get cursed. Chelsea drew 1-1, of course, with Newcastle United, and Newcastle need to use this opportunity wisely. Having qualified for the Champions League a bit ahead of schedule, Newcastle now have an opportunity to build the foundations of what could help them become a consistent top 4 club. The game against Chelsea showed that even without some of their key players, they can still mix it with a team with the quality, at least on paper, that Chelsea have. But they must also learn kind of from Chelsea that they can't last for a long time without the right recruitment and investment. That doesn't have to be names initially, but there has to be real potential there, especially when you have a look at the Chelsea bench and then the Newcastle bench. It's a much better structure and spirit clearly at Newcastle, and Eddie Howe's been able to get the best out of that group, but the bench there is not Champions League quality. And in comparison, a Chelsea team can't be that bad for too much longer. They surely will improve, and that means competition for Newcastle. So they need to catch up and take this opportunity of Champions League football. Leicester City, of course, relegated. Heartbreaking stuff for the Leicester City fans. One thing I will say is, what a run it's been since you came back up from the Championship. I'm a QPR fan. We went up the same season, and it's been very different for me than it has for you. So obviously, you've got to lick your wounds, but there's a lot of positives around the club, not the squad right now. But you've had some great times, some really good times. But it's just a great example that you've got to stay on top of your game. And I think they need to use this relegation as an opportunity to rebuild. We saw against West Ham that Leicester played mostly through central areas. What this shows is how important the likes of Maddison, Tielemans, Barnes and Iheanacho were in this game. Tielemans, who got an assist in this match, played particularly well, totaling 97 touches in the 90 minutes. Iheanacho and Barnes also combined for the opening goal really well. But the lesson that this teaches Leicester is that they absolutely and unequivocally need to nail it with their replacements, as they will likely leave, of course, this summer. The heart of this Leicester team is about to get ripped out, and how they bounce back from this is going to be what gets them back up or not next season. Have a look at West Brom and then have a look at Burnley. West Brom stuck with quite a few players that they probably shouldn't have. Burnley didn't. They made moves. They had some guys that could move with them, but they really refreshed it really quickly. It will be a risk, but there needs to be some tough conversations had very, very quickly so they can make those moves, have a good pre-season and kick on. West Ham. Do West Ham need to reconsider their style of play? That would be the sort of question and maybe a lesson from this game and kind of from the season. West Ham blow hot and cold more than any other team, it feels like. One week their attack will punish teams and look cutthroat, whilst the other week it will look toothless and blunt. And this was the case against Leicester. They had 51% possession, 16 shots, but only 3 on target, as well as 1 big chance. Now, maybe they were a little bit concerned about the European final. But, saying that, they played their pretty much best 11, which, I couldn't understand it. And I go on a rant about that in that live that I did yesterday. So go check that out if you'd like to see that. But I'm not going to talk about it now, all right? Although I just have. Doesn't matter. This season, they only averaged 41% possession, despite all these new exciting players. And last season, when they finished 7th, they averaged 47%. So this potentially means that they need to adapt and reconsider their style of attack or their style of play as a whole. Because with Rice leaving, the lesson they may have learned this season is that building around Paquetá is the way forward if they want to form any sort of coherent style that creates lots of chances for this team. Southampton keep Kamaldeen Sulemana at all costs. Sulemana was excellent against Liverpool with his overall performance and output, and is someone that Southampton have to ensure they keep a hold of this summer. He's the epitome of an annoying player, and that's not a bad thing. His movement all over the pitch, his speed and his dribbling made him very, very difficult to contain for Liverpool. Sulemana scored twice, made 2 successful dribbles and had a total of 5 shots against Liverpool. With this type of output, he could easily score 20 next season in the Championship and send Southampton straight back up. Keep Sulemana. I think the lesson for Liverpool in this one, in a 4-4 draw, is that you can't rely on Fabinho, it seems, anymore. We've known for some time that Liverpool need a few 8s in this window, and it looks likely that Alexis McAllister will be on his way. But against Southampton, I think we caught a glimpse that Fabinho, it just doesn't seem to really have the legs anymore. Fabinho attempted 4 ground duels against Southampton and didn't win a single one. This shows that the pace of the match was just a bit too much for him, and this is the worst team supposedly in the Premier League. And Liverpool need to address this in the summer if they want to continue with a single pivot. We'll be doing a video talking about one transfer for every single team. We've done a whole video on Liverpool in terms of the next 3 windows and what they could change. But we're going to address the Fabinho transfer, I think, in that video. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. In fact, hit the notification bell and then you'll be notified, won't you? Manchester United, firepower is needed. Man United created 2.89 XG and a total of 6 big chances against Fulham, yet only won the match 2-1. Not being able to put matches to bed has been a theme, I think, for Man United this season, and the lack of firepower may be a reason as to why this is the case. Something good for Man United, though, is how strongly they finished the season, with this performance being pleasing overall, but also the 4-1 win over Chelsea, which bodes well for them with an FA Cup final coming next week against Man City. Fulham, they've got to move forward. They can't stand still now. And after an excellent season, it would be easy for Fulham to just reflect and look back at what has been a great season for them as a club and a massive overachievement in general, it feels like at least. But with some key players in the squad ageing, such as Willian, who's 35, Tim Ream, 35, Tom Kearney, 32, I think it's important that they continue this momentum and add to the squad. The striker position, in my opinion, is somewhere they may need to add. I know Mitrovic has been great this season, but against Man United, he missed a penalty and then missed a further 2 big chances. Fulham needs someone who can come in when Mitrovic isn't on form and give him that competition. This also decreases the lack of burnout, which means that they can push for Europe next season. Lesson for Tottenham, I mean, probably you're wondering and thinking and hoping, it's the fact that Kane can't leave, can he? I mean, I think he should leave. I think it's a travesty if he doesn't leave. But I think if you're Tottenham, he can't leave, because I think some Spurs fans have resigned themselves to the fact that they may lose Harry Kane next season. But this match was an example of why that could be one of the worst things to happen to Spurs. I can't figure this one out myself, to be honest, but I can understand both sides of it. On the face of it, you would feel this way. So let's carry on down this road for now. I think maybe you need to take a step back to take a few steps forward. But at the same time, he's world class, so keep him, right? Kane scored 2 goals against Leeds, but was also picking up the ball all over the pitch, and it was a key orchestrator of their attacks. And with Arne Slot now having signed a new deal for Feyenoord, forcing Kane to stay may now be the only way that they can secure a high-level manager. Leeds United, another heartbreaking one for Leeds United. I did not see them going down, and I felt like they had the quality to stay up, but giving up on their strategy and maybe having such a gung-ho strategy is what's really sort of allowed them to lose their way, and maybe that comes from the top as much as anyone else, because you need to be in a job to continue to sort of go down that road, and they've made all these changes. And I think actually now with a new season starting and Allardyce obviously not being the right guy, they need a complete club overhaul. I think this game against Tottenham, it showed us that Leeds are heading in a strange and unknown direction. They've lost their way, and the decision to play a high and aggressive style against Spurs was particularly strange from Sam Allardyce, who, pun intended, rolled the dice. Leeds are now left in a strange position with some of their best players likely to leave, as well as Allardyce most likely. They also don't have a director of football to oversee the transition. They also may or may not find themselves with new owners very, very soon. The lesson they will now learn, if they haven't already, is that they can't look for quick fixes and to paper over the cracks. They need to instill a club ethos and build from there. That, of course, comes after the appointment of a director of football, which is going to be a crucial role for Leeds next season and the starting point. If you enjoyed this video and you want a similar one, but one that's different, how about a stat that defines every team's season? It's right here. Click on it. This is a video where we're going to have a look at one stat that defines every Premier League club's season.